Our essential problem is one of objectivity. What does objectivity mean? Sociologists, as human beings, they have values and ideals that guide their behavior. But sociologists are also scientists and should remain objective. In other words, you have to let the data speak for itself. The idea of value neutrality, absolutely free of bias, can be challenged on three positions. Sociologists use moral compass to decide what to study. They have constructive and destructive potentials. They need to minimize the destructive potentials. For example, if I ask people questions that you could ask a person a question that may psychologically damage them, you want to mitigate or avoid that possibility. Purely neutral positions are impossible. Information sociologists have access to is biased. Values of researchers determine the questions asked. Research will either support or undermine existing societal arrangements. And sociological research is political in nature and not value-free. Sociologists must have scientific integrity and recognize biases. In a way, everyone can study and learn about social phenomena. Everyone is a scientist, but we come as amateurs with a number of faults. We all approach situations with bias. Additional problems emerge when we use our own life as the example, or we make assumptions from a single case. The faulty sampling leads to faulty generalizations about entire social problems and how they apply to entire subpopulations. When we rely on common sense for our explanations, we miss part of the story. Our judgments and interpretations are also affected by prevailing myths and stereotypes. We know certain things to be true when they actually may be contradicted by scientific evidence. The textbook presents a number of examples of common sense examples about the poor and racial minorities. So what are our sources of research? We'll wind up with just a brief overview of how we do research. And this is going to be instrumental in completing one of your assignments, okay? So basically, or one of your discussions, I should say. First, survey research uses interviews or questionnaires to obtain information. Survey researchers use a sample of the population to obtain information. Done well with random samples, they can be very powerful, generalizing to the entire population. Longitudinal surveys allow for unique data collection over many years. Secondly, experiments can determine cause and effect. A control group is compared to an experimental group, which is given the item of study. As social scientists, we usually do this, as an evaluative tool. We look at the impact of a program, for example, on behavior, or some sort of a teaching tool, right, on behavior, and we evaluate. Okay. Observation shows detailed information about a group. A researcher without intervention can observe as accurately as possible what occurs in a community group or a social event. There are all kinds of social settings. As a graduate student, I observed interactions in a welfare office, for example. Sociologists can use data collected by other existing data. There's a wealth of Census Bureau, Department of Justice data. The existing data is usually cheaper and easier for a researcher to use. The downfall is it may not have exactly the questions the researcher wanted to examine. Okay, this ends chapter 1, the screencast for chapter 1.